preaching about who Jesus is very clear. In Acts 3, Peter, of course, is quoting the famous verse from Deuteronomy 18:15 to 18, where expressly the people of Israel said, we don't want to hear God's voice anymore. And God acceded to their request and said, okay then, I will raise up, I'll put on the human scene, I will produce somebody like Moses from among your brethren. Now honestly, does that sound like an angel coming from heaven or God the Son? Of course not. I'll produce an Israelite like Moses, put him on the human scene, and he will speak all my words to you. That, of course, is the core of New Testament theology about who Jesus is. And then, when Stephen is dying, of course, he cites that same verse from Deuteronomy 18 about the Lord raising up, producing, putting on the human scene a Messiah figure who will speak the words of God. In Acts 13:33, Paul cites Psalm 2:7. This day I've begotten you, not as a reference to resurrection, as misleadingly pushed in the King James Version, adding words there which shouldn't be there, but as F.F. Bruce and other good commentators have pointed out, as F.F. Bruce even, and other good commentators have pointed out very wisely, in Acts 13:33, the begetting of the Son is precisely the putting on the human scene, the raising up in the sense of a king being produced. David was raised up, not resurrected, raised up, being put on the human scene. Then in Acts 13:34 we have a reference for the resurrection as distinct from the reference to the coming into existence of Jesus, which after all is beget. The word beget is not that hard. In Matthew we have it 40 times, meaning the production of a new personality. Beget, beget, beget. Bring into existence, cause to come into existence. That must prove to any unprejudiced reader that that person was not existing before he existed. We don't need that fearful complication. Sit down, relax, enjoy your Bible, and realize it's the story about God, the one God of Israel, the one God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, the one God of Jesus, the God and Father of Jesus, telling us how a man can succeed with God, how a man, through the sinless example of Jesus Christ, can be finally exalted to the right hand of the Father, where he is not a second God. It's not Yahweh speaks to Adonai, heaven forbid. It's Yahweh speaks to Adoni. 195 times in your Hebrew Bible, the non-deity title. Supposing the Son of God was begotten, brought into existence, caused to come into existence by God. Start with Isaiah 9:6. Unto us a child has been begotten, will be begotten. It's a past tense of prophecy. By God, that is. There's an implied divine passage there. We're not told who the Father is, but this Son is going to be brought into existence. That will destroy at a blow, at a single blow, the idea of an eternal existence for the Son. That's just wrong. Isaiah 9:6. Unto us a child and a son are going to be begotten, brought into existence by God. This lays the groundwork then, of course, for Matthew and Luke picking up on that begetting, which is found also in Psalm 2:7. This day I've begotten you. Psalm 2:7. Playing out of those verses and much else, which shows the Messiah was to be a human descendant of David, we come to the begetting in Mary. That's Matthew 1:20. That which is begotten, brought into existence in her, is the Son of God. Luke 1:35, precisely for that reason. I mean, this dear Mary, at 14 years old, her brain was not being broken by the idiot complexities, may I say, of some of the argumentation out there in Facebook, Twitter land, which is becoming impossible. Start with something easy. Try a model that is straightforward, allowing the word beget to mean actually what beget means. Work it through, finally come to 1 John 5:18. Well, guess what? There's an aorist tense of beget again. Was begotten, the aorist tense of beget, which you find in Isaiah 9:6, which you find in Luke 1, not an aorist so much, but just the same verb, and also in Matthew. The same passive form of the beget word is found in 1 John 5:18. Where the one who was begotten in the aorist sense, that's the Son. Well, where was he begotten? Go back and read it in Matthew and Luke. Go back and read it in Isaiah 9:6. This isn't that difficult. See, while we Christians fumble over complicated, brain-breaking arguments about Trinity, how three can be one, and so on, the Muslim world is aghast at all this. Imagine the billions of Muslims who could become interested in the faith if we would say that God is one. Now, it's harder to say that God has a son. I understand the Quran doesn't like that. We'll get over that difficulty in due time. But the Jews, the Jewish people who take their Bibles seriously, are aghast at the notion that we should interfere with the Jewish Jesus and turn him into a Gentile Trinitarian. This is an awful slap in the face for the Old Testament and for Judaism. Good books have been written on this. I'm thinking of Morris Casey's book, From Jewish Prophet to Gentile God. These books need to be studied. There's been a terrible transition from a Jewish Shema reciting Jesus to a second God, which knocks on the head the Shema, the great central creedal idea, so beloved by Jesus, so beloved by the Jews. Imagine what we could do if we could understand the Shema as it stands.